well-adapted people, especially women, and we know inherently that the process of labor and birth is necessary for the continuation of our species. And the doctors would have us think that we are product-oriented. Just put me in the hospital, give me my baby, and I'll go home. That's why women got off their backs and started screaming about anesthetized birth in the 50s and the 60s. We had this whole incredible movement with the creation of Lamaze, with the creation of
ICEA
and La Leche League back in the 60s, when women took back the night and said, hey, this isn't any good. You know, that's when I went to nursing school, was just after 1970, and they were still anesthetizing women. It was knock them out, drag the babies out. We call it knock them out, drag them out obstetrics. Well, it's kind of going back to that now. And if women think that they are getting choice by demanding cesarean section and saying, you know, I don't want to feel labor, we've got to go back to them and educate them and say, why is it necessary for the continuation of our species in the way that we know it to have a normal vaginal birth? Why is it necessary? Nobody's focusing on the baby. And you know, I'm a huge baby advocate. And that's one reason that I started Water Birth International, was to save babies. Because water birth is the gentlest approach for giving birth for the babies.
I've heard that you've transitioned over 100 hospitals into
200.
To over 200 hospitals. That's a lot of hospitals.
Well, it isn't me personally.
To water birth.
It's the message. Mm-hmm. It's the message, and I've been giving the message for 20 years that we have to look at the way we welcome babies. And water birth is just a little part of that. It's called, I call it the Kmart effect. When we put a water tub into a hospital unit, women normally gravitate to there. Let's talk about the hospital in Keene, New Hampshire, Cheshire Medical Center. Cheshire Dartmouth, it's part of the Dartmouth College Medical Centers. And in that hospital, they took a look at their high cesarean section rate, which was then 20-some%, 25, 26%. And they looked at their high rates of induction. They looked at their high rates of epidurals. And they had a forward-thinking obstetrician, a woman, who said, you know, I had a cesarean section for my first baby. I don't necessarily want to do that again. Let's look at what we're doing to induce that, to cause that, as an obstetrician. Very forward-thinking. And so they made a plan, and they got everybody together, and they looked at what can we do to make birth normal. We can have women move. Oh, take them off the monitor. And if you look at all of the studies about fetal monitoring, they all say the same thing. They do not produce a healthier baby. They do not give you better statistics. They increase cesarean section.
That's amazing.
So they said, take the women off the monitors. Only get a strip necessary for risk management, and view birth as normal and healthy. Give the woman continuous labor support. Give her a doula, and we'll go into that in a minute. But give her a woman there to give her comfort and ease her pain by compassion, not drugs. And give her the ability to choose any position that she wants to give birth. If she wants to squat, if she wants to be on the floor, if she wants to be in the bed, if she wants to sit on the toilet, if she wants to be in the bathtub. And most of all, no routine interventions.
What does that mean?
Don't do things that we do just because we've always done it. Break her water. The minute she walks through the door, break her water. Start an IV. Take her off of all food and drink.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that routinely. Only do it when it's necessary medically. We have so many routines. It's like a telephone book, with the rules that women don't even know what they are. But ask women, ask at your hospital, do you routinely break my water? Do you routinely put a monitor on the baby's scalp? Do you routinely deny me food and drink when I'm in labor? And if they say yes, turn and go to another hospital. So in Keene, at this hospital, Cheshire Medical Center, they evaluated all of those things. And they said, let's provide a doula for every woman. Let's put bathtubs in every room. And in the space of 3 years, their cesarean section was reduced from 26% down to 14%, and it has remained there for an additional 2 years.
That's remarkable. If you could stand by, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go to a commercial break for about 5 or 6 minutes. We ask that you listen. We have an event in Los Angeles today, and we'll be back with the section on water birth. For those of you who are in Los Angeles this weekend, there is a wonderful convention, the 32nd Annual Cancer Convention with the Cancer Control Society, and it's at the Sheraton Universal at 333 Universal Terrace Parkway in Universal City. And we are here with Frank Cosino, the Vice President of the Cancer Control Society, who's here at this convention. Good morning, sir.
Oh, good morning. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad you're here because I want you to really settle some distortion that many of us have out in the public. I have talked to many people who have said that if cancer solutions existed, that certainly they would be available through hospitals and doctors and major medical periodicals and magazines, that we would hear about it on Reuters and all the major news broadcasts, and certainly all the organizations who are working so hard and so diligently for the last 25 years would be touting the latest wonder cures. So what possibly would people be gathering for in Universal City this weekend, starting at 9 a.m. with registration at 8 for the Cancer Control Society? What the heck is going on?
Well, to answer the first part of the question, cancer has been studied for many years. The government has put a tremendous amount of money into what it calls research. Private foundations have channeled money into so-called research. But it's all been pretty much a single facet type of research, either drug or radiation, and very little or none going into the area of diet, environment, and all the other factors that figure into any degenerative disease. And people often tell me the same thing, that, oh, well, if there were an answer, if there were a cure, if there were something, it would already be in the newspaper and it would be at the local hospital. And all of us are products of how we're brought up, how we're taught in school, and what we've learned. And we know, those of us, it's been a few years since I was in college, but we had certain professors that had a certain agenda, and no matter what the class, they would use the agenda to teach a particular agenda. And others had a different agenda. Some didn't seem to have any agenda other than a search for truth. And what the Cancer Control Society is about is a search for truth, but in such a way that we would like to present all the information that's available and allow the individual to make the choice, or the individual and his doctor make that choice.
You said something really profound to me just before we got on the air, which was that the disease that we know as cancer is actually easier to treat than the politics of it.
Well, that's very true. And a number of people have documented this, and what we have here is back around shortly after the turn of the century, we had foundations, tax-free foundations, that were set up to shield money, wealth of some of the super rich from taxation, so they could pass it on to future generations. And some of those people decided to reform medical schools. So they started to change the curriculum and say we have to have scientific studies, we have to have double blind, we have to do all of these things. Well, if you set the parameters for a study, you can predetermine the outcome. And if you have an economic interest in the outcome, it's very easy to see how it could be manipulated. If you control the school, either through grants, and if you're a drug company, and you're providing money for a medical school, the medical school is going to look to you for direction on what to teach. And